The other day, somebody sent an ATP question asking me to disclose the weirdest or strangest thing that I'd ever eaten. And I thought about it for a minute, and I thought, man, I wish I had a really snappy response to that, but I don't. Like, I didn't really have an answer because I really haven't eaten anything that's all that weird. But that's all good. I haven't, but Ben Big Country Cleveland is about to pick me up. I'm about to live vicariously through the big dog. Because maybe I haven't eaten anything that unusual or something that would lead to a conversation, but the big dog has. Remember how I've always been saying, offensive linemen are among some of the more interesting people in sports. You just don't get to talk to them. One, they want to remain anonymous. Two, people don't think to put a tackle or a guard or a center on the program. Three, they want to remain anonymous. But whenever I can, I try to put them on because it's a very technical position. They normally don't get that run. They're smart, and they show up in a good way. All right, so this guy right here, Ben Big Country Cleveland, is helping me make my point, my case. This guy was the Ravens' third-round draft pick out of Georgia. And with a gloss like Big Country, you better be two things. You better be big, and you damn well better be country. And Ben Cleveland is both those things. He is big, and he is country. How big? 6'6", 357. How country? Running on clean, burning meat that he hunted and harvested himself. Now, back in March at his pro day, Big Country looked really good, especially shredded. So the media wanted to know, what's up, dude? What did you get into? How do you look like that? What kind of work have you been doing? Better yet, what kind of fuel have you been consuming? Big Country responded with, quote, the squirrel diet probably helped me cut a little bit of weight this offseason, end quote. Wait, what? I'm sorry. This behemoth of a man just said that he's on a diet of squirrel. Is this an NFL offensive lineman or the fake Irie?
Romy, what's going on, compadre? I'm hosting a tailgate this Sunday for the Rams game. It's under the overpass on the 405. I do have possum, squirrel, and rat. And we're going to be grilling up those things all day long, amigo. You and the crew are invited. War me hanging up a bed sheet and acting out the Rams game with shadow puppets, and war me begging for change to bet on the Preakness.
I gotta admit, compadre, that was actually pretty awesome. It's always funny in retrospect to think about what we ran at that time. And then I hear it back, and I think to myself, why would I run that call? That was one of the better calls. That should have gotten that guy a golden ticket. Compadre, amigo. Anyway, if you were going to put squirrel in a food category, like what category? Roadkill? How many servings of roadkill? How many daily servings of roadkill does the FDA recommend? Is roadkill in that weird food pyramid thing? So Country was not lying back in March. In fact, the Ravens official team podcast followed up after he was drafted and then asked him what squirrel tastes like.
It tastes like squirrel. I mean, I don't know how to explain it to you. Some squirrels, like down south, they'll taste, like in South Georgia, they'll taste a little bit more nutty. Most of them up here, it tastes like squirrel. You put enough seasoning on it, you can make it taste like whatever you want it to taste like. But very tricky animals to cook. They got really fine hairs on them, so it's really hard to, get all the hairs off of them whenever you skin them.
You know that whole line about there's a lot to unpack there? There's a lot to unpack there, and it's all awesome. Number one, Big Country sounds exactly like a guy named Big Country. Doesn't he? That's not Little City telling you that, quote, squirrel tastes like squirrel, and that squirrels are tricky to cook up because they have a lot of fine hair on them that you have to skin off. But if you put the right seasoning on them, they can taste like anything you want them to taste like. He also told that same podcast a story about the time that he stayed home from school as an 8-year-old and he hunted for breakfast outside his window.
Stayed home from school and, well, I'm bored. I'm kind of hungry. Let's find a squirrel. So I'm sitting there and I'm looking out our window. I seen 2 squirrels in the pine trees. So I raised the window up and I was like, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. My grandparents are still down there 100 yards away from us asleep. I'm like, I don't want to go out on the porch and shoot this gun and wake everybody up. So I literally laid some pillows down in the floor, got my little 22, and I shot through the screen door on the window. I went out there and got the squirrels, and then I got to looking at the window, and I was like, crap, there's 2 little bullet holes in there. I said, Mom and Daddy ain't going to be happy about that. I took the window screen off of that window, put it in my bedroom, and replaced out the window screens. Threw them with some hot grease and made me some frozen biscuits.
Holy crap, this guy is a national treasure. Like squirrel omelet, yo. Most kids skip school and they do what? I don't know. They watch The Price is Right. Big Country. He's at home, bored and hungry, and grandma and grandpa or mom and pa, whoever, they're asleep still. He's shooting squirrel through the window and frying it up in hot grease afterwards, but changing out the screens or the windows because there were bullet holes and put them in his own room. Dude, my man is smart. Hungry, but smart and resilient. Like we've all been told all along, Wheaties would make us champions and pro athletes. Little did we know it's a hearty, balanced breakfast of fried squirrel that will fuel you to the highest and most elite levels. And you can spare me the emails and tweets about how, if that were the case, Irie Craig should be Tom Brady if eating squirrel leads to an NFL career. So, after the Pro Day mention and the podcast, the squirrel diet really started to follow Big Country around. And over the weekend, he decided to set the record straight. This thing was taking on a life of its own. It was getting big. It was starting to spiral. He says he's not on a steady diet of squirrel. It's not that that's what he eats exclusively. He just eats it when there is no deer meat left in the locker.
It's one of those things. I don't know if it was a specific diet. It's more so one of those things where, you eat what you got in the freezer from the fall. So, had a few squirrels freeze dried in there. So, get a little hungry. Ain't got no deer meat left. Fry up a squirrel or two and, just go eat that.
So like dry aged squirrel. My man's like, it's not like that. It's not like that was the only thing that I ate. I'll eat it if that's what's left in the freezer from the fall. I love this guy. Like, he's Big Country, and he's not apologizing for it. You call it roadkill, he calls it Thanksgiving dinner. Stuffed squirrel. If you think Country is the only dude slamming tree rats, you're wrong. The Georgia Wildlife Department has got a webpage where they rank the 5 best squirrel recipes. Are you hearing what I'm saying? There are recipes. Man, I am Little City. Because not only did I not know that you could eat squirrel, I didn't know there were different ways to eat and prepare squirrel. And even though I'm not a list guy, I'm not a list guy. I'm going to go ahead and read this on the air because it is so unusual. Coming in at number 5, buttermilk fried squirrel with southern gravy. Fast food has its fried chicken war. Georgia has its fried squirrel wars. Number 4, barbecued squirrel. Can you imagine having your friends over for a barbecue and you throw tree rat on the grill? Now that the world is returning to normal, I can't wait to have a barbecue in my backyard, and I can't wait to see the looks on my friends' faces when they see me queuing up some squirrel.
Can't wait.
Number 3 recipe, slow-cooked squirrel with veggies. Now we're getting hobo fancy. Hobo fancy with it. Light the candles. Turn on some Barry White. It is slow-cooked squirrel night. Now is when it really gets weird. I've actually been all right up until this. The second recipe, the second best way, squirrel casserole. Look, I'm not going to lie. Those two words together in the same sentence back to back sound pretty disgusting. I mean, I could puke right here and now. A squirrel casserole? You know what's worse than that? I can't even believe they went here. The number one squirrel recipe as rated by the Georgia Wildlife Department. And again, this isn't some whack job off on the side on some obscure website. This is the Georgia Wildlife Department. Their top recipe, squirrel Alfredo. Yeah, I think you can have the squirrel Alfredo and I'll do the math, all right? What, squirrel ravioli didn't want any of that. Squirrel risotto was too over the top. Squirrel pizza is not a possibility. I'm pretty sure I'm going to yak right here. I was perfectly fine with this entire thing until I got to the part about the recipes. Casserole and Alfredo. Once those two things enter the picture, man, I'm gone. I exit. You can keep your squirrel pasta dish. I don't want it. Normally, I would not wrap something without first trying it. That's lame. You know, you can't go off on some kind of rant or tirade if you haven't had it or tried it. But I'm going to make an exception here. I'm not sitting down to biscuit and squirrel, squirrel and Alfredo, squirrel casserole, squirrel sando. I really don't care how you prepare it. Squirrel spread over toast. I'm just not doing it, man. And save your, hey, Rome, you just don't get it. You're right. I don't get it. That's the whole point. I don't get it. I've got a backyard full of squirrels. I've never once looked at my backyard and thought to myself, squirrel. Ambi. Squirrel.
Ambi.
No, you're right. I don't get it. That said, your life, your palate, if it works for you, and apparently it works really well for the big dude, Ben, Big Country Cleveland, for getting lean and mean on squirrel, man, do it. You do you. And somehow making Big Country gloss, that is like the understatement of my entire life. Big Country. Man, has there ever been a more appropriate gloss for a guy than that? And I don't even mean Brian Reeves. I mean, this dude is the real Big Country. He looks it. He sounds it. He plays like it. He's awesome. Just he and I are never going to break squirrel. We will never sit down and break squirrel. Eat up, my man. Clearly it works for you.
It tastes like squirrel. I mean, I don't know how else to explain it.
That's weird, man, that squirrel tastes like squirrel. I'm surprised to hear that. I mean, there are a lot of guys I'd like to break bread with, but there's nobody I want to break squirrel with. Just not doing it. And it's not because I eat so clean, because I don't. I just don't eat squirrel. Nor do I have any interest. But Big Country, yo, you're the man. I love the way that guy shows up. 1-800-636-8686. Go ahead, bring it in. Bring it in. Let me know how I just don't get it. I already owned it. I don't get it. You're right. I do not get it. Am I supposed to eat everything I see in my backyard?
Eat it, Hud.
Because I see a lot of squirrels and some rats. Should I eat the rats too? I saw a raccoon the other day. Fact. Am I supposed to eat, homeboy? Before I get to my next topic, some quick reaction to our last segment. Rome, I have several different uses for squirrels as well. Flat top, comb over, shoulder length, and messy bedhead. Regards, Nicolas Cage selecting hair for his next movie. Steve in Phoenix, we're using saved Chick-fil-A sauces to dip your squirrel lunch in. Dude, do you squirrel those things away? Hey-oh, do you save the sauces for other things? Dear Jim, you missed some of the best recipes. Nothing beats squirrel parmesan and squirrel noodle soup. Regards, inbred West Virginians. Lee in Hartford. Or, you know, like in a little bread basket, but it's a squirrel basket. And you can dip it in olive oil or balsamic vinegar. or maybe a squirrel salad. I don't know, man. Like, if your take is, Rome, you're just talking out your ass. I'm going to say guilty. I am. I don't know, and I don't get it. I'm trying to. Hey, look, as I get older, I have a much more open mind to things, and I'm trying to understand this. I just don't. But I love Big Country, man. I love this dude. Hey, Jim, if you ever interview Big Country, see how old school he is, and if he eats the heads. War, squirrel, and dumplings, man. I hadn't even gotten that far yet. That is amazing. See how old school he is, and if he eats the heads. I got a feeling that by the time I finally run the big dog down, he probably would have been pretty tired of talking about his diet and squirrels and whether or not he actually eats the head.
Eat it, huh?
I mean, like, when you put that thing on a rotisserie, is it like a pig at a roast? Do we see the head or not? I'm just asking. And if we're harvesting and hunting, I mean, you don't eat everything you hunt. Is that thing going to end up on a wall somewhere? I'm just asking because I don't know. And I'm owning that. I don't know. Rome, squirrel casserole? Even I think that sounds disgusting. Regards, the bowl of potato salad covered in flies at the family reunion.
That is a disgusting act.
True. How about this guy? You may know the name. @Squirrel2. I mean, this guy's been rocking that handle for years. And finally, we get around to a topic reflecting his handle. Finally. Jim, thanks for spending an entire segment on me. Yours, Squirrel2. You got it, Geoff. No worries. That's what I'm here for. Hey, Rome, those squirrel recipes are making us hungry. Regards, people who have made a swimming pool in their truck bed. All right, then.